There he is, my guy, Paul Finebaum is here and ready to help us dive into the college football playoff. Hello, Paul. Great to see you, sir. Tell me this. Which first-round team is under the most pressure to advance?
Molly, I think it's Ohio State, and not because they backed in like some schools, but they have enormous pressure because of what happened in the previous game, and that was obviously the 13-10 loss at home to Michigan. So what do they have to do? They have Tennessee Saturday night. I think they're in a must-win situation, and there's a lot of speculation on what's going to happen to Ryan Day. But remember a couple of things. Should they lose, Ohio State fans will want him out. There is a $37 million price tag. Now, Doggy, $37 million, a lot of money to you, a lot of money to me. If I read the trades correctly, that's Stephen A's first year salary in his new deal. But that's still serious money for Ohio State. You okay, Stephen A? But ultimately, I think this is a must-win game for Ryan Day.
Yeah, and I do think they're not going to fire him based on that $37 million deal. Ohio State played great when they lost 2 years ago. They almost beat Georgia after they lost to Michigan. I expect a good effort. I'm going to go the other way, Paulie, and I think there's a lot of pressure on SMU and Indiana. SMU is very lucky they got in. Indiana, they had one big game in the spotlight. They got destroyed, and that coach I don't love running up the score against Purdue. Go to Indiana, go to Notre Dame and be competitive. And for SMU, go to Penn State and be competitive. You want to put the little guy in, you're now in the tournament. This is not the NCAA where you get, somebody gets blown out. It's okay. They've had a good year. This is a Saturday night for 3 hours or a Friday night for 3 hours, Saturday afternoon. Don't make me turn the TV off on Friday night, 31-0 Notre Dame in the fourth quarter. Don't make me turn the TV off or go to the Houston game on Saturday against the Chiefs because SMU's getting killed at Penn State. I think it's very, very important for those two teams to give America a football game. They don't have to win, but be competitive against the two teams that they play. Big underdogs. They're lucky they got into this playoff. Let me see them be competitive.
I don't get to watch as much college football as you two do. I defer to y'all. I've watched a few games this year. I'm going to agree with Paul on this one with Ohio State. But I'm going to take it a step further, Doggy. I watched that game against Michigan. I watched them lose 13-10. You cannot be Ryan Day, who's lost 3 straight to Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, come back against Sharon Moore, lose to Michigan, and then the first advanced 12-team playoff format, you end up losing in the first round and keep your job. I know it sounds crazy because the brother's like 66-10 against everybody else. You know, the guy's record is his record. But when you lose to Michigan and you ain't in the national championship picture, in the age of NIL when you had $20 million on your roster, oh, Doggy, I think they can get rid of him. I think they can get rid of him. Now, I'm not saying this, please, Paul, don't get me wrong. I'm just using this as a hypothetical example or whatever.
No.
But somebody that you believe can recruit like a primetime Deion Sanders. I'm not saying him literally. I'm saying I don't put it past Ohio State to go and look for somebody like that because we want to make sure of 2 things. We want to beat Michigan, and we want to be in a national championship picture. We don't want to be backing in. We don't want to be looking up. Oregon now is the number 1 seed. They've come in and they've taken over. Dan Hanning and these boys doing what they do. They don't want to be deferring to anybody. It's supposed to be about them or Michigan.
Yeah.
Ryan Day has messed that up. And if you don't win and you get bounced out in the first round, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not advocating for it because overall his record is impressive enough to keep him. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if Ohio State said, yo, man, we need to move in a different direction. I think he's the one under the most pressure.
Do you guys want to comment on that? Because there's another angle I want to go with Deion.
No, go Deion. Go ahead. No angle. I understand his point.
Yeah.
I don't think they're firing him anyway, but I understand.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Stephen A., I'm glad you brought up Deion because he had some interesting news on his future. Take a listen to this.
I love where I am. I'm elated where I am. I'm happy where I am. I can't wait to see what the future beholds. With where I am, and I love Boulder, Colorado. So I have every intention, every plan in the world to be coaching for the Colorado Buffs from here on. I want to finish here. I want to put the flag. I want my names on the mountains out there. I want to put my flag down in Colorado.
Paul, I'm a big fan of Deion, know him personally, but I'm not buying it. Are you?
Well, I mean, I think he has to say that right now, Molly. I mean, we are in the middle of the portal, so you can't say I'm thinking about the Cowboys job or the Raiders job. So I don't know him like you do, but I mean, I want to believe him, but I also know that if one of these NFL owners come along, or like Stephen A. alluded, one of these blue chip college programs, I don't know how he could turn it down. He's losing the two players that have ignited this program. And while there are other players coming into the portal, from the portal, he's getting some big ones. Are there enough? Does he go through the same thing every year? I still believe that somebody will come after him, and I think he'll take it when it's offered.
And let me say this to you. Let me go a step further. I understand that $37 million is a lot of money when it comes to Ryan Day. If you could get your hands on Deion Sanders to bring him to the Ohio State, you pay the $37 million. They'll pay the driver $37 million to ride him out of town. I just had somebody text me and say that, okay? That's how much money they got in Columbus. That ain't a lot of money to overcome. You can come up with the money to do that. And so I definitely think when it comes to Deion Sanders, to answer the question directly, as somebody that knows him personally, have mad love for him, and I understand where he's coming from. He's incredibly appreciative. Colorado has given him to come from an HBCU, to give him an opportunity to do what he's doing, doggy. He's appreciative of that, and he wants to see the job finished, meaning he wants to get them to a playoff. He wants to depart successfully. But I don't believe him when he says he wants to stay forever. I think when an SEC team comes calling, I think when a Big Ten team comes calling, one of those blue chip programs, as Paul alluded to, I find that impossible for a guy like primetime Deion Sanders to turn down, because then it ain't about the money. It ain't about the locale. It ain't about the program. It's going to come down to his ability to recruit, and I know he believes in himself that he could go and get anybody if you put him on an even playing field, or dare I say, at an advantage. He will milk that to the nth degree and get it done. I don't believe for 1 second that he's going to be forever at Colorado.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't know if the NFL will run after him. And one thing about Ohio State, what are they going to do if he makes a great run here in this tournament? And they beat Tennessee, Paul, and they go out there and beat Oregon. And, let's say they go lose in the semifinals, but they win 2 playoff games. Are you going to fire him? I mean, how in the world could you fire him? He loses to Georgia, 38-35 on January 20th. I mean, how in the world could you fire him if he makes a good postseason run?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Day can survive if he loses the game, but how about if they win a couple games? What's your take then? What are they going to do? They're going to be in between. What are they going to do?
No, I think he'll stay. I think the way he gets fired or forced out is losing this game Saturday night. That just cannot happen. But ultimately, Stephen A., I want to go back to what you said about Deion. Ohio State has everything under the sun. And they'd be better off today with Deion Sanders, because the problem is the fans have already turned out. They're turned off by Ryan Day. I mean, there's a lot of fear Saturday night. That stadium will not be all in. As crazy as that sounds, I hear from those fans, and they are mad and they are angry, and a win over Tennessee will just get them to the next level. But you talk about somebody like Deion or somebody who's capable of dealing with that environment, and I'm just not sure Ryan Day is any longer.
And not only that, give Ohio State credit. They've had exceptional coaches, obviously the Urban Meyers and others of the world, but coaches who became box office once they were there. In Urban Meyer's case, he was at Florida first, so obviously,
Sure.
He came there with a name. But they want a name. Like somebody mentioned to me, Mike Vrabel, who started Ohio State, did a good job in the NFL in Tennessee. But as good as he is, that is not going to create the sizzle. I think in the age of the NFL, on the NIL, and the transfer portal and all of that, the combination of the two, I think when you have these blue chip programs, you're looking for sizzle. You're not just of course you're looking for production. Ultimately, somebody that can get the job done. It definitely always comes down to that. But if you can get the sizzle to be an allure, an attraction that's going to generate revenue for you, not just with the games, but just the mere mention of your name and what that brings. See, that's where the prime times of the world come into play. And that's what's going to make him so attractive. You got to remember, Colorado was one of the biggest stories in college football last year. They were 4-8. They lost 6 straight, 7-8. So why? Because of him.
Yeah.
So people are saying, excuse me, if you know now that he's proven he can coach on this level and he can win football games, if you put him in a position where you know that it really just depends on his ability to recruit and he brings that sizzle, you're thinking about he pays for himself. It's like Shohei Ohtani to a lesser degree. Goes to the Dodgers. He pays for himself. Yeah, he gets $70 million a year. But he pays for himself because his popularity is so huge. That's what you're looking
I
for
understand.
if
Yeah.
you're Ohio State.
All right.
Ryan Day does not do that for you. He's going this way. They
Okay.
want somebody that's going this way.
But before we roll, Paul, can I quickly get your national championship picks, please?
It's a very nervous nod toward Georgia, Molly, and I
Okay.
realize the Carson Beck situation hovers over them, but I still feel like they have a good path.
I'm going to say Texas. I think Texas, with the 2 losses, they're bounced back. I like them to beat Clemson. I'm going to take a crazy run at Texas. They also would play Arizona State next. I think they could beat them. Georgia's going to have to probably beat Notre Dame. I'll take the Longhorns.
You
I
want to
would say
save
this-
yours?
I would say this to you. When we talk about national championship, I'm thinking, all right, I would go with you with Texas if they don't have to face Oregon first. But if based on it right now, I think the national championship is going to come down to Georgia and Oregon. Unless Texas, obviously, I think Texas has a chance to beat Georgia, but I'm just looking at it. Who are you going to run into beforehand? That's how I'm looking at it. I'm going to go with the 1 and the 2 seed right now.
Okay. Paul, thank you so much. If I don't see you, happy
Thank you,
holidays,
guys.
happy New Year.
Happy
All
holidays.
See you,
Paul.
Paulie.
Same.
Here are the
See
12-team
you guys.
college football playoff first-round matchups from Campus Stadium. So Notre Dame hosting Indiana Friday night. That's in South Bend, 8 Eastern. That one's on ESPN and ABC. Then TNT has Saturday's first 2 games, SMU Penn State. That one's in Happy Valley, noon Eastern kick. Then Clemson, Texas. And we wrap up the night with Ohio State hosting Tennessee and Columbus. That one's on ESPN and ABC.